You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to The Bible Guys.
It's good to be here.
It is.
This has been a great week.
It has.
It started off rough
of podcasts,
but it's gotten better and better every day.
Well, that's our
pinnacle.
goal. Our goal is to set the bar low and then under promise and over deliver.
That's right. So this is going to be the best one all week.
Yes. Well, you know why?
Why?
Because the Bible.
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. But also because of dad joke competitions.
Yeah. Well, so I do have to say, for the people who were hoping for what made Chris mad this week.
Yeah. Which is.
You know what could make you mad this week?
What?
The fact that your segment got replaced and now we're doing dad jokes.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't?
Because I like to think.
Well, it makes the rest of us mad, Chris.
I like to think that people appreciate the break and want something new.
Okay. You know,
right?
if you give them the same thing all the time, it gets old. They get used to it. They're not thankful.
Even filet mignon.
A bunch of unthankful people.
Even filet mignon could be too much if you have it every day.
I'd like to try.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'd like to try to make it too much.
Well, your heart may not like that. But
here we go.
Hey, here it is. Dad joke competition. This is my daughter Tori's favorite thing.
All right, are you going to go first?
No, you go first.
Me?
Yes.
A mummy covered in chocolate and nuts has been discovered in Egypt. Archaeologists believe it may be Pharaoh Rocher.
Oh.
Oof. That's a rough one.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming. As soon as you said covered in chocolate nuts, I'm like, okay.
Pharaoh Rocher.
Egypt.
Ferrero Rocher.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, those are my favorite candies. So my favorite candy, Ferrero Rochers, Reese's peanut butter cups, especially Reese's eggs. The eggs at Easter. Yeah. Those are my two favorite.
Okay,
and then Hershey's with almonds.
I'm going to do something. that we don't ever do.
What's
right?
that?
You didn't ask for it, but I'm going to do it. If you are a faithful listener at Heritage Church and you attend Heritage Church,
no.
I want you to flood Jeff this weekend with those candies that I can't pronounce.
Yeah, okay.
And just come up to him and just give them to him.
I'm embarrassed.
Hey, I'm going to see if anybody does it.
Okay.
Will you do it? Will you do it, listener?
Will you be the one?
Will you be the one?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Is this like this is like a telethon now on our
right.
Yeah.
They're calling in.
It's a candy-thon.
Candy-thon. Okay, here we go. I got my first one.
Okay, go ahead.
And by the way, I haven't even read these, so I'm hoping I'm going to read them okay. My wife asked me to take her to one of those restaurants where they prepare the food right in front of you. So I took her to Subway.
Okay.
That's funny.
Yeah. All right, here we go. In the span of 17 years, 114 people died in accidents while at the gym. In the same 17 years, only one man died while eating a donut. Life is about the choices you make.
There you go.
Okay, I don't know if that's true, but it sounds believable to me.
1 + 1 = 3.
That's right.
That's great.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, here we go. I needed something therapeutic to do, so I took up gardening. After 6 months, 42 trips to Home Depot, 38 blisters, and throwing out my back, I was able to eat my $632 salad.
That's the truth. That is the truth.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Yeah. So, do you plant like a table garden, like a vegetable garden?
No, my wife does all of that, and she has pots.
Oh,
and some of them have grown into big pots, right? So she has big pots. But she does like herbs, basil, and thyme, and she's growing strawberries and tomatoes. So she does some of that, but they're not like it's not like in the garden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just in little pots.
Well, I was so excited because this year was my year. I started all of my plants indoors early. I planned months in advance. I worked out my planting schedule, all this kind of stuff. I got my gardens. I got the soil just right. I finally, when my plants all got big enough, I took them outside. I planted them, and then I had to go away.
Yeah.
And the person that I asked to water my plants did not. And almost everything died.
That is so funny.
So now I have one massive tomato plant.
Yeah.
I have 2 massive pepper plants, and then these peas just won't quit growing, right? They're growing. And then I have, I don't know why, but like 9 basil plants. So I think we're going to be making a bunch of pesto this summer.
There you
right?
go.
Yeah. You got tomatoes and pesto and some peppers.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's
but
great.
it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be like a $450 jar of pesto.
Right. That's so good.
Okay, here's mine. My son asked me what procrastinate means, and I said, I'll tell you later. Oof.
That was it?
That was it.
Ooh,
That was it.
that was one of the worst.
Hey, I didn't write them. I'm just reading them.
That was terrible.
I'm just reading them.
Oh, awful. Let's hope this next one's better than that. I went for a run, but came back after 2 minutes because I forgot something. I forgot that I'm out of shape. I can't run for more than 2 minutes.
That's a good one.
That was really good.
That is a good one.
That was really good. I forgot that I'm out of shape and I can't run for more than 2 minutes. That's really good.
That's great. Okay. I'm terrified of elevators, so I'm taking steps to avoid them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, you really got the bad ones.
I didn't write them.
All right, here we go. Police have arrested the world tongue twister champion. They said he'll be given a tough sentence.
Oh,
Oof.
okay.
Oof.
Parallel lines have so much in common. It's a shame they'll never meet. Whew.
Wow.
I'm over today, buddy.
Yeah. You're,
Over.
Yeah.
Okay.
My friend's bakery burned down last night, and now his business is toast.
Oh, no. Okay.
That's pretty bad,
Well, you
too.
had one.
I had
We were 1 for 10.
Well, I liked the Subway.
10%.
I liked the Subway one.
Yeah.
And I thought the salad one was okay.
Yeah. You got 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got 3.
So we're
yeah,
3 for 10.
The running was really good.
Yeah. That was the best.
It
one.
was really good.
Yeah, that's a good one. Save that one for.
Yeah. I'm tempted to call Tori, but we're
Tori.
sort of out of time.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how we made that into 6.5 minutes.
So I don't know either. But we did.
Speaking of taking a long time,
Yeah.
you know who else took a long time?
The people, the virgins.
The bridegroom.
The bridegroom.
The bridegroom
Yeah,
took
the
a long
bridegroom
time.
Took a long time.
Yeah, the bridegroom was a long time in coming.
On purpose.
Jesus said.
On purpose.
Yes. So in Matthew chapter 25.
Yeah.
In verses 1 through 13, Jesus tells, I think, a very interesting parable.
Yeah, it's titled in mine, The Parable of the 10 Virgins. What is yours?
The parable of the 10 bridesmaids.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. And then in that culture, then this is in like a whole sequence of Jesus telling parables and particularly talking about the end of time, right? Mm-hmm. So he starts off, he's talking about the future, then he's talking about his return.
The end of time.
Then he talks about remaining watchful. That's all of chapter 24.
Yep.
And in the context of remaining watchful, he comes into the beginning here of chapter 25. And it says, Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 bridesmaids who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The 5 who were foolish didn't take enough oil for their lamps, but the other 5 were wise enough to take along extra oil. When the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, they were roused by the shout, Look, the bridegroom is coming. Come out and meet him. And all the bridesmaids got up and prepared their lamps. Then the 5 foolish ones asked the others, Please give us some of your oil because our lamps are going out. But the others replied, We don't have enough for all of us. Go to a shop and buy some for yourselves. But while they were gone to buy oil, the bridegroom came. Then those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was locked. Later, when the other 5 bridesmaids returned, they stood outside calling, Lord, Lord, open the door for us. But he called back, Believe me, I don't know you. So you too must keep watch, for you do not know the day or the hour of my return. Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So
Go for it, Chris.
So 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise.
Mm-hmm.
The foolish one took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise, however, took oil in their jars along with their lamps. So really, that's the key, isn't it?
Yes.
So the key is to be prepared, to be anticipating, to be ready, right?
Right.
So what they were doing is and by the way, this parable doesn't make a lot of sense because, no, I shouldn't say that. I should say it doesn't relate very well because the situation they find themselves in, we don't do that today.
Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
So what would have been the tradition at that time?
Yeah. So you have to remember the weddings used to last a week at a time.
Which, by the way, weddings in India, my brother says, because he goes to India all the time, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it still lasts a full week.
Some of them will last a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would last a long time. The groom would come to the bride's family's home. And when he arrived, the wedding began. That was kind of the thing. You know, for us, the wedding really begins when the bride walks down the aisle. That's the highlight. But
when she's ready.
Yes, when she's ready.
I just did a wedding on Saturday, and the wedding was supposed to start at 3. It started at 3:30. And the bride always approaches me as the minister as if it's a brand new idea and says, hey, listen, is it okay if we start a little bit late? I just want to give people time to get here because of whatever reason. And I said, I have a little file on my computer. It's a little file folder, and you right-click on it. It tells you how many documents are inside. So I have the file folder that says weddings. I have 312 documents.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay, and there's probably some I didn't forget, right? Or I've forgotten to put in there. So over 300 weddings, I said, I have literally done every single wedding, and guess how many have started on time? 1.
I just always tell them, no, we start on time.
No, you don't. No, you don't. I have never started a single wedding on time, but it's always when the bride dictates. And they always think it's a brand new idea. And I always say, I always assumed that it was going to start late. I just assume it, right? Because that's whenever the bride wants to be honest. But in this case, it was the groom because he was traveling.
Right.
Right. He was doing the work of traveling.
So I have told people as we were prepping for weddings, hey, just make sure you let all of your guests know we're going to have to start on time. So make sure they're on time. I've told them before. I have to. I've rarely ever started a wedding late. I promise you.
How many weddings have you done?
I don't know, not 300, but probably 100.
Dude.
I've rarely started a wedding late.
Every single wedding.
It's usually part of my wedding planning conversation.
Yeah,
hey,
I understand
we need
that.
to start on
I
time,
understand that. But the day of the wedding, there's a traffic problem. There's people coming late. It's the one-time event of my lifetime. Could you please give them 10 more minutes to travel?
Sure. I mean, I've started some weddings late, but not many.
It's
I would say the majority I've started on time, not late.
Yeah, I do not care when it starts.
Yeah.
I just let the bride do her thing, man. Yeah. So that's really funny.
Isn't that funny? I don't tell them no. Yeah. I think that's what you're thinking is that in the moment they come to me and say, hey, we have to do this. I've already preemptively said, we're starting on time, so make sure everybody's there on time. So I've preemptively said it. If they come and ask me, I go, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll wait. How long do you think? Yeah. I'm not waiting 3 hours.
Right.
I'll sign your document. Let your dad do the vows.
Okay.
No, I'm joking.
Since we're spending minutes on this, the only person in my entire career that has started on time, do you know who it was? No. Dave Van Epps. I married.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Dave. Yeah. Well, actually, Dave's one of our elders at Heritage Church, right?
Right.
I married him in Charlotte like 10 years ago, whatever it was. And I actually had told him the day of his wedding, I said, I've done 200 weddings, Dave, and none of them started on time. And he goes, none? I said, what? And he goes, okay, just because you said that, I'm gonna ruin it.
Well, he's an achiever.
Right.
Yeah.
He says, I'm gonna ruin it. So literally, he said, 3, 2, 1, walk out. And he walked out. And I was like, dang it.
Yep.
I was like,
awesome.
So he ruined it.
Yeah, that's great. I just did a funeral recently, and same thing in the conversation. Was, hey, we're going to have to, because it was at a funeral home, we'll need to start pretty close to on time.
Yeah.
And so it was tick, 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 tick. Funeral director pointed at me. I stepped up. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. And all that stuff. He comes, he says, dude, that was the first one we got started on time this week.
That's so funny.
You can count on me starting on time, buddy.
That's so funny.
Anyways, for them, it was different because the travel was so difficult, right? You're not flying on a plane. You're not waiting for a bus schedule or a train schedule. You don't have a car that you can just plan out. You didn't have Siri telling you where to turn, right? Yeah. And so travel could be very difficult. The further it is, the more difficult it'll be. And so a lot of times, even now in the developing world, in the Middle East, in Africa, in India, time is way more relative than it is for us. If I say, oh, let's meet at 2:15, I mean, let's meet at 2:15. I really meant I want you there at 2:10, right? That's what I meant. We just went to a ball game the other day. I told my friend, hey, let's meet at 5:30. We'll drive down to the stadium. And he pulls in at 5:20. I'm like, this is why he's my friend, right? So it was perfect. It was really good. But in Africa, if somebody says we're going to leave
I'm your friend in spite of those things.
Yeah. In Africa, if somebody says, hey, we're going to leave at 2, anything from 2:00 to 2:59 is 2.
Right.
So this groom, so time is way more relative. The journey is important. The people are more important than time in the Middle Eastern culture. And so this is why it's not a surprise that the bridegroom shows up late. The party's not going to start till he shows up. The bridesmaids' jobs were to welcome him. It'd be like the welcoming party. It'd be the cheerleaders, yay, while the football players are running into the stadium. It was kind of that idea. So they're waiting outside with their candles, their lamps. They're ready to celebrate him coming. And he just is late. That's all. And it's okay. This isn't a bad part of the story. That's a normal part of the story. The problem was 5 of them were prepared and 5 were not. Right? They were waiting and they were prepared. They had everything in order necessary for when the bridegroom arrives, they'd be able to join the celebration with him. And 5 were not prepared. They were distracted. They had to go out and get some more stuff. They did not make the right plans. And then they were caught in doing the business of life rather than being able to celebrate. So when the gate gets shut, they don't get into the party. They miss out on it. And Jesus said, listen, you don't know when I'm going to arrive, but you need to be ready. That's the whole point of the story. It's a really narrow meaning to the story. Yeah. Right? It's not sophisticated. He's just saying, you don't know when I'm going to arrive, and you have to be ready.
Yeah. And another lesson we could learn is it's pretty obvious the reason why the other 5 weren't prepared is because it wasn't a priority.
Right.
So the only way that the other 5 were prepared is because they thought about it. Well, what happens if he comes and we don't have oil, right? So that's priority. That's concern, isn't it? Right. So what we're doing is it's so important to us that we actually think in advance. And we're like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to not miss this moment, right?
Right.
And so when we plan, that's really just another way of saying priority. And so there are some people who don't plan for things, some people who do. And the only reason why some people plan is because it's an important thing. And so, these other ladies, it doesn't say why they didn't come with oil, but one thing is clear, it certainly wasn't a priority or else they would have thought about it.
Right.
So yeah, I think that one of the things that we need to remind ourselves is that, when we don't make God a priority, we miss out on God's blessings. Right. So yeah, I mean, this is certainly the case when you think about the second coming, right? When you think about preparing and always being prepared for and look for Jesus coming in his glory. But it could also be applied to life, I think. When you make God a priority, then you are prepared for when an opportunity comes, when a blessing comes your way, when God speaks and says, do this, and then you do it in the moment and you realize that God had this great thing prepared. So even in the moment, when we're actively waiting and listening and anticipating God's voice, I mean, how many times have you been with your wife or with a really good friend and they'll say, like, in the moment, I think God wants me to say something, or hey, I want to pray with somebody, or hey, pull over, I want to talk to this person, or whatever it is. And somebody just acts in the moment. Well, that's somebody who's closely listening. They're anticipating, what God has for them. And I would argue and say they've prepared their heart, they've prepared the condition of their souls, they've prepared their priorities, even their priorities. They've decided upon them in advance. Right? Hey, this is a priority because God told me to do this. So regardless of whether we're going to be late for the ball game, we're going to do this, right?
Yeah.
Can I tell a quick story?
Yeah.
So I remember I was meeting my dad downtown with my brothers for a Detroit Lions, Cleveland Browns game. They're from Cleveland, south of Cleveland. And so anyway, they're meeting with us, and I was on a cast. I was on an air cast because I had twisted my ankle. And so I was too cheap to park close to the stadium. So I had driven around forever, and I had found a place with $5. It had an attendant, which I thought, okay, there's an attendant there watching the parking lot. But it was like on broken glass gravel. And then come to find out it was 1.3 miles away from the stadium. I had driven around so much, I thought it was close, but I wasn't.
Right.
So I had walked all the way to the stadium on this aircast, only to realize I forgot the tickets in the car. I was by myself. By the time I got to the car, it was almost halftime. And because I was already late for church. And so I was like, oh my goodness. And I was really frustrated. And so I went back to my car, opened it up, grabbed the tickets, and I'm like, my family's going to kill me. I told them I'd be there by the end of the first quarter from church. And then here now it's halftime, but I had to limp back to my truck to get these tickets. And as I was closing the door, ready to hobble back to the thing, the ticket attendant said, "Hey, I noticed you had a Bible on your dashboard." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, and I'm trying to get away from him. And he goes, "How come you have a Bible on your dashboard?" And I said, and I just sort of blurted out, "Because I'm a pastor." And he goes, "You're a pastor?" "Yeah." And he goes, "Wow." He goes, "So how long have you been a pastor?" And I'm thinking, okay, I've got to go, right? I've got to go. And then he said, "Hey, I have a question." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Just real quick, can you tell me, how do you get to heaven?" And so at that point, I got a choice to make, right? I got a choice to make. And so obviously...
Good luck, buddy. I got to get him go.
Yeah, right. Obviously he wins, right?
Right.
So I sit there and talk to him, and then he has all these other questions. And so then I lead him to Christ. And I'm thinking, this is hilarious in one way, And after all this, effort, so I finally hobble all the way back to the stadium. And by the time I get there, it's the end of the third quarter.
Wow.
Right? And my family's like, "Where have you been?" And I'm like, "Hey, man, some things are priority,
Yeah.
And I told them the story, and they're like, "Really? Yeah. Couldn't you have talked to him later?" I'm like, "The moment was then, bro."
Right. That's funny.
Right?
So what you have here is Jesus is setting up the fact that there's going to be a day when he returns.
Yes.
So obviously he's the bridegroom.
Yes.
In the story. Remember, the parables almost always have God as the hero. In this situation, Jesus as God is the hero. He's the bridegroom. We know he's the bridegroom because in other places it references it. But then, like Paul talks about in Ephesians, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it, right? And he cleaned her up and presented the church to himself as a bride that's spotless, right? So he's the bridegroom. Then,
so we're the brides.
Yes,
and bridesmaids.
Brides. Well, yeah. In this situation, we'd be the bridesmaids, but yeah, the church would be the bride total.
Yeah.
The bridesmaids are these individual
People.
ones, right?
Yep.
So 5 of them were foolish; they were not his followers, and 5 were. So the idea would be that he would show up at the bride's home, and then get the bride and the entire bridal party, and now bring them all to his father's house. And at his father's house, because she's joining the family, at his father's house is where the party would be. So this is how we know he's talking about his final return. This is at the end of time when he comes, right? Some people call it the rapture of the church or whatever. And he's coming someday. And some were prepared for when he returned, and some were not. And so those that were prepared, they were able to enter into the party. Those that were not prepared wanted to borrow what the others had. Oil in the Bible, and in a lot of their things, hints at the Holy Spirit, right? It's the source of the fire kind of thing. So oil is usually the Holy Spirit. You cannot, when it's all over, there will be a day when you don't have another chance. So while you're breathing breath, while you are living on this earth, before Jesus returns, before you die, you have every opportunity. God is saying he's not willing that any would perish, but that all would come to repentance. It's why he's being patient with you, right? Giving you more time. But there will be a day when it's done. You don't have any more opportunities. And in that moment, you will not be able to borrow the faith of your mom or your dad or the fact that your grandpa was a preacher, right? At that moment now, if it wasn't personal and if it wasn't intentional, you're going to be standing on the outside looking in. That's the big picture of the story. And so that's true for you and me and for our listeners, but that's also true for the people we care about. I think a lot of us have people that we want to go to heaven, and we intend, if there's ever a good opportunity, to have a meaningful spiritual conversation with them, try to lead them to Jesus. The problem is we don't know when their time is done, when Jesus is going to come for them, right? And so in that instance then, or in that situation, we shouldn't wait. We need to also be actively trying to make sure that the people around us are prepared, that they are ready to meet Jesus at any minute. Don't wait. Don't wait for a perfect opportunity, because perfect opportunities never come along. Just make the opportunity to share the gospel, to lead them to Jesus, because there's going to be a time when there's no more opportunities for any of us. And so right. It really creates a sense of urgency here, right? Yeah. Faith can't be borrowed. You can't go get it from somebody else. And so that means we need to be making sure that we're spreading it as much as possible now while the opportunity is there.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, that is a great place to end, and what a great passage and a great thought. And so hopefully we will see you as we pick up the series on Monday on the Bible Guys.